We're on the job today. This is a new house that we just finished building. I didn't film any of this job because I was working with a friend of mine and really it was his job, so I was helping him out. But I'm going to introduce my wife into my channel, and she's been a professional painter for like 36 years, and she's the best painter I know. I've been doing this myself almost 40 years. So she's going to give you some tips on paint. So I'm going to let her take it from here.
Hey, I'm Cheryl. I've been a professional painter for 35 years or so, 36 years. I'm going to show you some tips. I'm painting some baseboards, so I'm going to show you down here how I do it. This one's pretty good. I like to use a light. A little light is better because I'm always holding it. But a big light's okay too. Use the light obliquely or on the side like that. Because if you use it like that, you can't really see what you need to see. So you hold it to the side, and then you can see everything, including that little thing on the wall. But I'm not worried about that. I always like to have a putty knife, so I'm going to go get my putty knife. This is a pretty good one. It's got kind of a sharp blade. I don't usually dig with it on the floors and stuff. Usually this is for taping, but just clean that right up there a little bit. To do the bottom, I got a nice taping knife right here. I'll show you two ways. I'll show you first cutting it in, just the brush. Again, you get your paint on there, get it most of the way on, and then you go along, and you just use that nice edge to cut that on there. And then you kind of gently brush it out. You don't have to brush, because you want to leave kind of like a layer. And a little tip, always go with the grain, like the grain of the wood. If you're doing things like this, you see all them marks? You don't want that. You'll see that. There we go. That's nice. Wipe the edge again. Now, I didn't get any on there, but yeah, maybe I did. So if you got a little bit on the bottom, you just take your taping knife, nice sharp corner on the edge, go like that. It doesn't harm the floor, and it doesn't harm what you just did. Nice, neat line. So some people like to use this. Usually taping knives have a little bit of a taper in the middle. See, it goes in and out, and that's good for taping. Not so much for cutting in, but it's okay. You can still use it. You can use this instead if you're not comfortable with putting it on with your brush alone. Like this, get little gobbies out. Always pick your gobbies out. And that's a little tip. Always have your rag too.
All right, now it's gone.
Okay, so I'm going to patch this area right here with sand paint, and this would probably be good enough, but there's just a little bit of a shadow right there of the, where it was indented a little. I'm just gonna, again, use the vinyl spackle and fill on it, kind of taper the edges, but they're not as important because I'm going to put right over it. That's probably good enough. I don't need to do the rest. Now I'm going to use the sand paint that I mixed up to kind of blend in. And this one is a little different because it looks like it has some brush marks of somebody previously that did it. So I tried to match it as I was putting the vinyl spackle on. Again, the goal is to kind of blend it in. Not going to be perfect, but you kind of blend it in so what you're looking at isn't so noticeable. And probably this one definitely, because it's smoother around. It doesn't have as many grits in it. I'll probably sand that afterwards pretty good because it's probably been painted over before. And somebody sanded some and filled it and did whatever they did, which made it smoother around in this area. but it's just a little different over here too. So you just gotta kind of work with whatever there is in the immediate area. So something maybe like something like that. Again, your edges, very important with your edges. You make sure that there's no mark at the edge, because otherwise you'll see that, like where you fixed it, and that's what you want. Just kind of work it in. You can always clean up with your nice tapered edge paintbrush. Sometimes you can go farther out than what you had. Just kind of blend it in a little bit. Make it not so obvious. Again, this is a mixture of regular green lid tape and compound and paint. In this case, it's sealant paint. Wouldn't have mattered because we're painting over it anyways. If I was matching it, I would definitely use whatever paint there had been on there before, which you can do. And then the special grit, whatever you call it, texture, that comes in a container. You can add as little or as much as you want to it for the grit. And you can make your mixture as heavy as you want. So sometimes, if it's a real paint sealing that has the texture with the paintbrush, I'll put a whole bunch of tape and compound in there, because you're almost putting a layer on. And sometimes, not so much. You want more paint in there. That area needs just a little bit more texture right there. Kind of like a faux finish again. So after this is dry, I'll sand that, and it'll blend pretty well. You can even just kind of brush it with the brush just to get some of the grit off on the edges. A little bit more right there. That about does it. So I'm painting now, and I'm painting up against wainscoting or whatever, paneling, and it's dark brown, as you can see. Now previously, before I'm painting right now, like the other day, I took dark brown caulk. I filled in up there because it was just nothing there, so it was a space. And then I put some dark brown stain that has polyurethane with it to kind of blend it in. So that all looks good. So now I'm going to cut in a line, and when you cut in a line like this, you have to make your own line. You don't just go right up to the corner, because then it might lip down and you'd see the white on the dark. So you hang back just a little bit on this, and I just get my paint on there first. So it doesn't matter how you get it on, you got to have a good amount of paint up there. Also, if you look down in the bucket, when I get paint, instead of going like that, creates a mess there, I go like this, slap it against the sides. Works much better. So I get a little bit of paint on there to work with, because that's my medium that I work with. And then kind of clean off that side, and then I just go right along, and I kind of eye. You have to breathe when you're doing it too. You kind of eye it, and you cut a line. Brush it back out. Usually I have at least, this is a small paintbrush, at least a paintbrush width, because you have to feather that edge out, so when the roller comes along, it rolls over that. And that's how you do that. I'm rolling a sealant right now, and it's a sand paint sealant, or a textured sealant. It doesn't have a big texture, but it still is textured. So I'm going to show you how I roll. This is like a 3/4 inch nap, I think. So you just get it on. It doesn't really matter. Put it on pretty thick. I'm going to roll that out, but you can probably see some ropes in there. You're going to just see it's going to get rolled all out. Anything that you see that's a rope from a previous thing, I did not do that. Disclaimer. Again, just put it on pretty thick, especially on a texture sealant. And it is soaking it in. Just do a section of whatever you feel comfortable with, depending on how it's drying and all that. Alright, then I usually clean off the edges, like that, so I don't get a lot of gunk. And then you do your finish rolling, kind of feather it in like that, kind of nice and light. Feather off at the end. Nice and light at the end. Even though it's flat, you don't want heavy drips on the end, or heavy pieces of paint there that you can see once it dries. Again, because this is a texture sealant, stuff like that thing right there and this, I don't worry about. But if you're not careful, if you don't have enough paint on your roller, then you'll tend to get things like that, ropes we call them, like that. So you want to make sure you don't push too much on edge, or you have enough paint on it to start with and you won't really get those. Nice gentle thing, nice easy. I'm not pushing hardly at all. There we go. And I usually when I put the paint on, I put it on like this, rough, and then my fine, tuning where I'm doing it, the finish, I went the opposite way. That helps to get the paint on also, because if you do get a rope, you usually get it. So there you go. So I'm going to cut in right here against the cove molding. And when you do that, you get your paint on there. Always using my light. Get a good amount there so you can work with it. And then you just create your line. You don't necessarily go right to the corner, but you can. You have to have enough paint on your brush. Breathe as you're doing it. If you stop breathing, it's harder to do it. Just like weightlifting or other things. And then gently, don't press too hard. Brush it all out and then get that bottom so it's all nice and feathered in. There we go. Okay, I'm here going to show you how to roll a wall. This will be a one coat cover. Walls are a little rough. I did sand them down, some. But you can't make things look perfect sometimes, so you compromise. I use rougher sandpaper, but still, you get a couple of things. But it's not perfect, but it'll be fine. So I'm using a flat latex enamel from Benjamin Moore, the matte finish. So when I get every roller full, what I do is you kind of get some in there. Try not to get gobbet over there or over there. Just got to get some on it. And then as you're going up, you turn it. And it doesn't drip so much. And you just kind of get it on there. Now in the case of these nails, I can just go right over it. Sometimes I cut them in. But they're so close and they're already painted. Doesn't really matter. As you see, I'm kind of gobbing it on there. That doesn't matter either to start with. But when you finish, you'll finish rolling it. And you'll roll all those spots out. On walls, I can't normally go across and then down both ways like that. So I tend to just kind of get it on there willy-nilly, whatever. And then I start back. See all these roller marks that I had will all go away. And you want a little bit of texture because that will kind of cover up some of that stuff that was there previously. Just do a section that you can do without it drying. It's not the exact color going over it, but it's pretty close, so it should cover. try not to gob it up there too much. You get it up there because you don't want a big gob at the top. And then you clean your edge if you need to. Just push down a little like that. You can do that on the side if you want, but that's going to be my edge. Get as close as you can. Nice and light. You don't want to be pushing like this, because when you push like this, you tend to roll it out too much and not have enough paint on your roller. You have to have paint on your roller. You kind of just smoothing it out. As you can hear, we got the complainer roller today. If it works too hard, it complains. See that texture? That texture will cover. Once it dries, it'll cover a little bit better than trying to make it really smooth, especially when you don't have really smooth walls. I never cut around outlets unless I absolutely have to. Usually roll up to them. I think the customer might be eventually replacing those outlet with a lighter outlet inset. And that will solve that darkness, the difference. See that nice texture, so covers up some of the things that were there before. And when you get to a corner, I save that for the last. You have to make sure that you don't gob it up on the corners. Nice and light. Some corners are rounded so that when you do it, you almost miss in the middle. In that case, you might go like that. These ones, they're okay. Nice and light touch. So when you get to a corner, and you're rolling it, what I'll tend to do, if I'm not immediately rolling the other side, sometimes that's the best thing, but if you're not immediately rolling the other side, just take your finger and run it right up. And then you smear it on there, and whatever was gobbed up on there isn't anymore. You keep your corners nice and neat. There you have it. So when you're finished painting, remember this is a 3/4 inch nap. You can get more stuff out of it than you would a 1/2 inch. Usually you can use a 5-in-1. It's a tool that actually, don't know where it is, so I'm going to use this. It's curved, so it kind of fits to it, but you can use any kind of putty knife. Usually a more rigid putty knife is better. Just kind of, you're squeezing it out. Look at how much paint comes out of that thing. You wouldn't want to try to clean that out before you squeeze it out like that. Plus, big waste of paint if you tried to do that. You can get most of the paint out like this. Sometimes I'll take one of those fine mesh screen, like you use for the no-seams, you know, the fine mesh. They make them at the store, actually, for 1-gallon buckets, 5-gallon buckets, and they're reusable. They're not the kind that has paper on them. They just have the mesh. They're not very expensive. And then you would filter this paint by putting it right there before you put it back in the can. But in this case, this was sand paint, and if anybody ever touches up, it's a sand paint sealant. So filtering it doesn't really matter. Look at that. Look how much paint there was. So always remember to scrape your rollers out really good before you clean them.
keep this camera here for any of you guys that wanted to watch paint dry, but you probably don't.
Yeah. And if you get a little bit where you don't want it, this is a great trick. You take a rag, it's a little bit wet, not real wet, damp, putty knife, and you go like that, and you keep turning it till you get it off of where you didn't want it. You can do that anywhere. Unless the paint is real wet, like say whatever I put on there, which is long dried polyurethane. But if it was wet, you wouldn't be able to do that.
And there you have it. As you can see, it's pretty rough. So it's a little bit of a trick to get a line on there. I think she did about as good as she can.